Well, steam power was probably the most important invention in the world since the wheel. Full stop. Because you think about what it means to have a mobile source of power. It's extraordinary, the revolution that it creates. Before steam power, you had to use sails to cross, oceans. And of course, you have the railroad. No steam, no railroad. If you didn't have steam to move on land, you had to have horses or you walked. So of course, in this inventor-oriented society, the society that's trying to think about how to do the new and better thing, a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, how can we have something besides horses? And that's, I think, where the original steam-powered vehicles come from. I mean, they call it a horseless carriage because they're using an existing technology. A carriage, they're just trying to remove the horse from it. So the origins then of these steam cars are really the first step towards the contemporary automobile, a transitional moment using really this revolutionary 19th century technology.
With a steamer, water is a limiting factor as to your distance.
I loved automobiles from the time I was a little kid, and I think when I was about 6 years old, we would go to Rehoboth, but south of Dover, you would hardly meet a car. You might meet about 3 cars between Dover and Rehoboth in the wintertime. And so I'd be on the front seat with my dad, and I'd get over in the middle of the seat, and he'd let me steer over here. I wasn't more than about 6 years old coming up the road. But anyway, I've been into cars ever since. Now, Richard, I rely on the 3-tube. I believe in it, but I also know that we're using water. Now, we're not using much because we're kind of going downhill a little bit. I was always interested in the mechanical things my father was doing. He was a great trap shooter for a while. He invented a clay target trap, which was one of the first things he built in the new shop here in 1937. But mostly he was interested in automobiles, and he would always talk about Stanley steamers, and I'd never seen one, and I really didn't know what they were, but he'd get a new Packard, and it was pretty nice, and smooth, and he'd say it's almost as smooth as steam. And I thought, well, these steamers must have been something, but I never had seen one. People think I grew up here with steam cars around and with the little train around. Well, they weren't here when I was a boy. But when I was 16, he heard that a Stanley he had sold to John Becker in 1913, that old John still owned it. So he bought it from John Becker, and that became the first car in the collection. And when you're a teenager and just about the time you get your driver's license, your dad gets something that's completely different, but something you've heard about since you were a little kid. I was obviously very much interested in the Stanley. He got it running in fairly short order, and he kept on buying. So the collection was growing. Then all the cars he had bought came here. Pretty soon this place had 40 cars in it, but they weren't restored cars. They were just as he had bought them, and gradually he did mechanical work on them, sold some. So the collection numbered about 34 when my father died in 1969.